Welcome to the Manly Banter. Everything you are about to hear is suggested for mature audiences. This isn't for everyone.
If you're easily offended or don't know if you're easily offended,
You're going to learn today.
this may not be for you. This is raw, unrated, unfiltered talk. For those who stay, enjoy.
Oh, it's time. This is Billy Bob on the banjo.
I'm Billy Bob.
And you're listening to Manly Banter with Bash and Banter. Manly Banter in the Bash and Banter in the go get down. Everybody want to get a little bit of something down now. I know that. Go get got. Watch how you might get shot. Come on, Whitney, Whitney, go on, getting on, little diddly.
All right, welcome back to the Manly Banter. I'm Bash.
And I'm Bader.
And today we are doing an interview with Paulie. And we're going to be talking about EMT horror stories or just funny stories that happen. You want to say anything else before we get started?
No, I actually want to, we were talking before we started doing, recording, and I want to see the rest of your story, Paulie, about, your edible adventure.
Oh, yeah, that was something. You want to get to that right away? Or?
You know, I think
Well, let's hear a little more about Paulie before we get started.
Yeah.
What do you do now? Where'd you start? What are your plans for the future? Things you got coming up?
What do I do now? Sleep a lot, rest.
It's always a good time.
No, I work for a corporate, larger grocery chain, doing retail loss prevention. So when you're shopping, I'm watching.
Okay. I think I walked into the store a couple times, and you're like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah, I seen you from the top, and I thought I'd send you a message. I'm like, why are you looking at douche?
It was toothpaste, I swear.
Right. Looked around like, how do you know that?
Yeah. How do you know where I am? That's what I said to him. All of a sudden, he walks up behind me, puts his hands on my shoulders, and I felt something touch my butt, and I didn't know what it was. So.
it was this flashlight.
That's exactly what you thought it was. Still an EMT. Did that for 8 years. Did about 7.5 on a fire department. Took a step back from the fire department world. Still do some private EMS, which is a whole different ball of wax than the fire department world. So it's different.
Nice. Any good stories or funny stories or anything you could think of right off the top of your head? People getting stuff stuck where it shouldn't be.
No, never had anybody with like a PB&J in their sniz. I did have one where it was a call came in and it was an accident on a tree. Car hit a tree, and we get there, and the guy is in the driver's seat, buckled up, pretty injured. The girl is in the back seat, and somehow it always happened where when we got to scene, whoever was in charge was like, "Hey, you." Talking about me, throw out my last name, and get in there. So always the fat guy had to climb through the window or the door, and I get in there, and her eyeball is out, like dangling like a chicken nugget.
Holy shit!
And I seen it, and I'm like, and instinctively you try not to say anything, but it just came out. I was like, oh shit. She's like, oh, is it bad? And I was like, no, we got it. No, it's good.
I just got to put this back in your sack.
Right, I just got to push this back in there. Like, but, and it turns out, we treated her, did what we had to do, but I had a feeling. And I'm like, just the way his seat's back and her seat's back and she's in the back seat, I think I know how this accident happened.
She lost an earring.
And... And coincidentally, through some channels, I found out I actually knew who the guy was, and kind of just asked the third party, like, "Hey, so what happened?" And he, we just missed a raccoon. And I'm like, "Yeah, is that what we call it?" And but the truth came out, and it was exactly what you think it was.
That's awesome.
A little pleasuring on Highway C. Ended up in a tree.
What a story, though, right? She sucked so hard she popped an eye out. That's what freaked him out.
Yeah, he could brag about that. My shit's so big I can pop out your eyeballs.
How do you even address a situation like that when you're getting her out of the vehicle or eyes hanging out? Like,
we just we put some gauze over it, tape it around it to protect it. The hospital would be livid if we tried to push that thing back in.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like all the way out, like hanging from a string, but you could see the entire ball.
Damn.
So we
definitely protruded out there.
We just covered the ball. And,
you couldn't see my ball, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, we would. I'd push that one back in. Cover it up, take her in, and let them do the rest. That was pretty much what we did. Horror stories. I think my first one, it really made me wonder. It was my first big snowstorm back in 2012. It was a quick little shot of snow. There were like 38 accidents on the interstate.
Holy shit!
And we got up there, and as soon as we go, we see a car under a semi. I'm like, this can't be good. And yeah, sure enough, like I peeked in, and the guy was just smushed, like dead, clearly dead. And I'm like, damn, I don't know if this is for me. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot, And then we just continued on and continued working the accidents, and then we ended up. There were so many accidents. We were triaging people at Wendy's on I-94.
Oh my god!
Hey, we got to take over this building. We don't have room.
Right. So they were bringing people to us, and I'm still thinking, this might. I don't know. This, I did a lot of schooling, but I don't know. And the manager comes out of Wendy's like, hey, thanks for what you do. Here's chicken nuggets. And it was that, and I'm like, this is for me. This is it.
This is it.
This changed my mind. He just brought me 20 nuggets and a free soda. I'm like, welcome to EMS.
I'm do this for the rest of my life.
Right. He's looking forward to.
Right, I'm set.
Yeah, he's like waiting for calls outside of another Wendy's or some shit.
We get a call 13 miles away, like, hey, could we take him to Wendy's?
Could you imagine that in the ambulance? You make a pit stop to Wendy's before you get to the hospital.
I brought a lot of humor to calls. I tried my best. We had one. It was a domestic dispute, if you will. And the guy thought the best course of action to get back at his girlfriend was to throw himself out the window.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'll get even with you. Watch this. So he jumped out the window, cut himself up real bad. He was drunk. And so he wouldn't tell me his name. So I just collectively, the deputy's like, well, he's in custody. You want us to ride with you? And I looked at him. The guy's like $150. I just kind of chuckled. I'm like, no, I got this. And so I just called him Stuntman the entire call. I'm like, all right, Stuntman. And then he started rambling about a sock sale at Walmart. That's all he was. He was so thrilled that Walmart had this awesome deal on socks.
They do have some good socks deals.
I'm like, well, let's swing through Walmart on the way to the hospital. Let's get some socks. Yeah. He was stoked. A lot. We've had a lot. There were so many. I mean, we could talk for days, but not a lot of them are exciting. Not a whole lot of exciting stories, I guess. There's nothing that... I mean, there's a few that stand out. The guy got kicked in the face by a bull.
Around here?
Yeah. They used to do out on the... there's a ball diamond, or was. I don't know if it's still there, closing out on 94 and 11.
Okay.
Used to be, I think, Shane Raleigh's. Well, they used to do these Mexican rodeos out there. And, yeah, guy took one right to the kisser from a fucking bull.
God damn.
And they're... and every time you're going to a call, you're thinking, what am I going to see? What am I looking at? Is this guy's face going to be gone? That was a good one. He was pretty jacked up. There also used to be, speaking of the same neighborhood, there was a hotel that I think it might still be there. I don't know. I haven't been down that way. Right outside. It was a little flea bag, like 10 doors, right on the corner there. And that was the epitome of hell. There was a guy who was kind of crazy, and we'd get called out there once a month. Well, his way of dealing with his I guess psychosis was he would just lay in bed and I'm just going to take a shit. So he would stand up and just hang his ass over the bed and like, let's just let it go, and he would piss and shit all over the room, and I mean the whole floor. It was like the game The Floor is Lava. We would play, the floor is shit.
Jumping from chair to bed.
Right. There were a couple times where we actually Rochambeau'd. We rock, paper, scissors. Like, okay, who's going in there for this guy? And I got our assistant chief, I got to give him, props. He's like, no, I'll go in there. And I'm like, you, sir, are a god. Like, because I couldn't, like, I'm gagging, just like,
Yeah.
like, and yeah. And then we'd have to package this shitty dude up, put him in the ambulance, and literally bring this guy covered in his own everything to the hospital. All the windows open, the fan going, nose plugs. Yeah, we didn't. And then there was another guy out there. This dude was 700 pounds.
Jeez.
Giant dude. Like, we couldn't even get him. We had to call for. There was another
He had to cut
agent.
the frame out.
No, they were able to wedge him through the door. He just had to move a little to the left and move a little to the right. I mean him, not the door. And but they had to have a special cot. There was another agency that actually had like a winch that you had to hook the winch up to the cot, a ramp, like literally winch his ass into the ambulance.
Holy
so
shit.
he was a frequent flyer is what we called him. We've seen him quite a few times. Big
Probably
fella.
for like heart-related issues or something? Or?
He was diabetic,
Oh, okay.
as if that's some sort of surprise. He just had all kinds of shit going on. He ended up passing away. But that was a nightmare. Every time we'd see it, we'd be like, here we go, this big bastard.
I'm guessing he couldn't walk on his own or anything.
No, he couldn't get to the hospital. He couldn't. He lived. Everybody at that hotel lived there. I don't think there was anybody that's drove by and like, oh, look at this. Let's stay here for the night.
Yeah.
No,
it's
it was
not one of those things.
He probably hasn't been out of his house in years,
No,
when you're that
no.
big and you can't walk, you're not getting out.
And
I can, your story about the guy shitting himself, like, I can relate to that, because when I was working in mental health, we had a couple of people who did similar things, and there was this one individual, just, if you did anything nice for him, like, you fucking get him a Coke from McDonald's or something, he would get really excited, he'd shit his pants, and stick his fist in there, and then try fighting you. And it just, no one wanted to do anything nice for him, but I remember the first time that I ever saw it happen, I was probably I think I was like on my first like 90-day trial thing, and that was when I went home and I was kind of thinking like, oh shit, I don't know if I want to do this, but then luckily I went in the next day and they're like, hey, we're transferring you to another unit. I said, okay, alright, I'll take it.
Alright, I'll see you.
Yeah, man, and then I had this one night, I was, they mandated me, so I was working, I already worked second shift, so I wasn't going to get off until 7 in the morning. And this individual comes walking out, and he's just butt-ass naked, and just has a trail of shit going all the way to the bathroom from his dorm room. I was like, oh, fuck me, man. I just kind of try to pretend I don't see that type of shit. I'll just go back into, like, one-on-one room where it's just like, I'll relieve you, man, what's up?
How did you not see that fucking trail?
Yeah.
Those kind of people want you to see him too. They're like, look at my wiener. Look
Yeah,
at my wiener.
dude, it was terrible, man.
Or like that story you told on a previous episode about the guy with the fucking horse cock that puts it in his own ass
yeah,
and flings
dude.
that shit out.
Yeah, that's something else,
Yeah,
man.
I listened to that episode and I visualized it. I'm thinking, imagine growing up, you can go fuck yourself. And it's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I will.
I already did.
Right. Been there right now.
Don't threaten me with a good time, man. Fuck. That guy was rough, man. I can't relate on everything that you've probably seen or anything, but as far as like behavior wise, I know that when you're dealing with irrational people, and most of the time when you're an EMT, you're probably dealing with people at like the worst part of their life so far.
Yeah, that was the hardest thing. Like a lot of my jobs prior to EMS was seeing people happy, and then when you're seeing people at their absolute worst, that's the hardest hurdle to get over. Like, and then when I had my daughter, then kids calls. When you're dealing with kids, it's like, that's that one's hard to get over.
It sucks.
But after and it as I don't know, rough as it sounds, but after a little while, you just become desensitized to it. It's just, I kind of would tell myself when we'd see somebody deceased or like a suicide, like you kind of, it's almost like it's not real. It's like, this isn't real.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something. you know. But like you said, mental health, it's a bitch.
Yeah.
You know, those were the ones I wouldn't bring humor to. Just because, you know, I don't know what they're going through. You know, are they seeing unicorns and rainbows? You know, when they look at me, do they see a thin guy? I'm like, how crazy is this? You know, so those ones were the ones. But I tried to bring humor to a lot of the other stuff. But a lot of stuff was funny. You know, there were a lot of things that were, you know, we would go to these places out on the interstate, and it's a lot of temps. And these temps would just make shit up to go home for the day. And they'd call an ambulance. And we'd get there and like, I'm pregnant and I don't know what's going on. Well, how far along are you? Like 2 weeks. And I was like, what? How do you feel anything at 2 weeks? Like, and then they're like,
the semen reaching the
right,
egg.
Well, I've got 6 kids, and I'm like, well, how do you feel anything at all then? Like, you know, so just, those were the funny ones because we'd go out there, we just knew.
Yeah.
We're like, you know, this guy, this girl, you know, I don't feel good. I got a headache. You know, those are the ones, and it's just an expensive Uber at that point. You're just paying a shit ton of money for us to take you to the hospital.
I think it's like, what, $750 now or something like that?
Depending on what you do. You know, you can be up in the thousands.
Yeah.
Depending on, you know, if you're bad or what level of care you receive. It can be ridiculous. But, and then some of them, you know, it might sound judgmental, but that's what we do here. You're like, they're not going to pay that bill anyway. So you're like, what do I care? Let's just call, you know, Uber's $36, ambulance free. Yes, let's call the ambulance. So, that was that. It had its ups and downs for sure. You know,
insurance is going to cover this drive home,
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh man, that's shitty.
Shitty.
Yeah. So like. You're a pretty funny guy, and being an EMT, seeing all kinds of, like, pretty dark type of stuff, does your personality, the humor that you bring to it, is that kind of, like, help you deal with, you know, the everyday of the job? Like, when you come up, just, I guess, dealing with, like, you said you're, like, desensitized to it, but does it help you not kind of like think about the things that you've seen or had to do or anything
absolutely.
of that nature?
Absolutely. Yeah. I you know, there's some people who have, I mean, look, there's a lot of EMTs out there who have PTSD.
Yeah.
I've managed to avoid it. I mean, there've been a couple calls that you kind of revisit and you know, you can't shake them. They're just in there, but I mean, humor and comedy have gotten me pretty far.
Yeah.
Not financially, but emotionally, yes. Emotionally, they have, and like I was saying before, on calls especially, you know, and like you mentioned before, people are at their darkest hour. So we would judge them, and like, okay, this is a situation where I can make this person laugh, I can make this person smile, and there were times where I would have the entire back of the ambulance just cracking up. You know, where it's just like we can't even do our job because everybody's laughing. Even the patient, you know, the patient goes from, oh my God, my pain's a 9 out of 10. This might be it. And they're just cracking up. And I'm like, I feel better. You know,
the driver
so
can't drive.
Right.
That's all I need. Surrounded myself with assholes. I just need a good laugh.
Right. That's all I need right there. So, a fat guy with jokes. And, it definitely helped in probably 70% of the calls that we went on.
Yeah, I tried using humor a few times to try de-escalating situations when I was in mental health, and you couldn't be more right. It does not work because they already barely understand my humor. So when I was trying to make like a joke, when you're at that point with someone who has like, I worked with a lot of like dual diagnosis, and they're very irrational. So when you're saying anything that you might think is funny, they take it literal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it just, you know, I don't know if I did, but I might have made some situations a little worse. But, that was a trial and error type situation.
Yeah, I definitely, when I first started, I made a couple situations worse because my natural reaction was these, you know, whatever the case might be. They're, you know, I seen unicorns, and I would just be like, yeah, how many? What color were they? You know, how big was the horn? Did you touch the horn? And there were a couple times where they were like, yeah, you should probably lighten up on agreeing with them. Like the guy that jumped out of the window. You know, after the call, they're like, yeah, I really think you pushed him to want to do it again.
Yeah, right.
You called him stuntman the whole call. And I'm like, you know.
Is this my calling?
Right.
I can jump through another window.
You know, that guy in the ambulance called me stuntman. He might have something. As soon as I get out, I'm going to go through another window.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm going to go run through traffic on the highway.
Right.
150 pounds, man.
Let's play Frogger.
What about, like, any domestic violence calls that you go on, or, like, stabbings or things like that? Are there any, like, funny stories that you heard of why they were being attacked?
Yeah, we had one. I'm glad you mentioned that. We had one early off again. It was a husband-wife, and the husband wasn't home. Well, the wife was. And we get a call it was actually from the sheriff's department. It's like, hey, she's threatening to cut herself. She's threatening to hurt herself. So they naturally will send us there with the police, and she. So we get to the house, and we can only see her through the window. She's got a knife, and she's gonna cut herself. And so the deputy. It's kind of a funny story. Again, we'll continue. The deputy kicks the door, and the door puts him on his ass. He's like, no, I got this. He goes through it, another kick, down he goes. I'm like, okay, look, we got this. So every ambulance has what we call the irons. You know, it's a Halligan and an axe, and two of us, we get in there. And as soon as the deputy comes in, she sticks the steak knife in her thigh, right there. And so he takes her down, and you know, as he got her in custody, and we are bandaging her up, stopping the bleeding. Then she starts to proceed to tell us on the way to the hospital what happened. And she's like, yeah, my husband's a son of a bitch. He's off on business. And I want a divorce. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm like, all right. And I try not to, I try to steer away from the conversation because I really don't, not that I don't care, but I don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, we got about 17 minutes before we hit the hospital, so just relax. And she just continues on and tells us. And well, she proceeds to tell us that, you know, she through messaging and videos and a found item, she found out her husband's been cheating on her. And I was like, oh, well now, you know, I was like, oh, that's terrible. In the back of my mind, I'm like, ask her what the found item was.
That's what's going through my mind.
I'm like, I really shouldn't ask her. I'm like, so tell me what was the found item?
Yeah.
She's like, I'm glad you asked. And she goes, it was a fucking dildo. I was like, oh God.
Oh shit.
And
It could have been his.
well, and then she goes, yeah, can you believe it? And at this point, inadvertently, the humor came out, and it just rolled off the tongue. I'm like, well, God, how big was it? You know, not where did it come from? Not oh, that's ridiculous. I'm just like, well, God, how big was it? And she goes, it was huge. I was like, oh, jeez. And she's like, and it had poop on it. and I literally was doing something, and I did that turn. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And she goes, it had poop on it. And I'm like, it had poop on it. She's like, yeah. And I was like, that's disgusting. And she goes, no. What's worse is, remember I told you there were photos. I was like, there were photos. And she goes, yeah, it was his poop. and I'm like, oh yeah, we got 7 minutes left to the hospital. And at this point, I'm like, okay, now we're going to stop. I'm like, yeah, now I don't want to hear anymore. And then I'm like, but how? Yeah. I want to stop, and now I'm like, I can't let it go.
Yeah, it's
but
a train
how?
wreck at this point.
And she's like, well, I'm getting normally I wouldn't spread his business, but fuck him. She's like, well, there's a video of him and the neighbor. And I was like, oh. She goes, the neighbor was giving it to him. And I was like, ew. She's like, the neighbor's a 77-year-old man.
Oh,
and I was like, and the woman, she's got to be in her late 20s. And again, that's where it just slips out. And I was like, Jesus, ouch. And she's like, that's all you can say is ouch? Like, my neighbor's fucking my husband with a poopy dildo. And I started laughing. She goes, that's funny? I'm like, no, you said poopy. It was funny to me. It was the wrong time, but
it was definitely funny.
But just the way she said, it was a poopy dildo. And I'm like, poopy. That was, you know, there weren't a whole lot of domestic. we'd have some. The town we were in was smaller, so we would have things that we would have to one came across a helicopter crash, and I'm like, is this a training? What did they say? Helicopter? Like, you didn't think like a helicopter crash in our area, or a shooting. We pulled up, and we had some characters. Every department's got your slew of characters.
Yeah.
And if anybody I know listens to this, as soon as they hear the story, they'll be like, "Oh, yep, know exactly who that is." We pull up, and the sheriff's department's like, "Hey, we need you to stage. There's a possible shooting." So he was an officer at the time, and I'm driving, and he's like, "Pull up behind the apartment complex. Turn the high beams on." I'm like, all right, no problem. And he's like, that way if he comes out, we can see him. And I'm like, okay, this guy's shooting up the apartment. He comes out, we can see him. At what point is that a good idea? And he lifts his shirt and, no, I got this. It's like packing a .40 caliber. I was like, oh, damn. I'm like, all right, this is how we're going to do this. Okay.
We're over here.
Right. Yeah, come this way. We'll help you. Coincidentally, he's in law enforcement now, as if that's some sort of surprise.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of...
Stop resisting.
No. Right.
Are you reaching for something?
Do you want to reach for something?
Yeah, right.
Please reach for something.
Yeah,
Here,
please.
hold this. Oh, you reached for something.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Think fast.
I smell marijuana. No, you don't.
Right.
You do now.
Right, just sprinkle some crack on him.
Yeah.
We didn't get a ton. I mean, there were some. There was one that was pretty interesting. That we had a meeting. Our meetings were once a month, and a guy applied for membership. He wanted to be a part of the department, and stands up, talks to everybody. Hey, I'm going through school. I want to be, I want to do this. And then we get a call a week later for a domestic, and this guy's beating the hell out of his girlfriend. We show up, and I'm kind of like, I'm pretty sure that's the guy that was just at the meeting. Everybody's like, yeah, that's him. I don't think he's going to join. I think that's going to end that application process. Not a whole lot out there, I guess. It's in the county. People get along better, I think. A couple suicides. Couple missing persons.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton of exciting. It was your average call. We had one guy, and we call them frequent flyers. We had one guy who would always call, and he wouldn't call. He had a service that this service would. He had diabetes, and the service would call him like every 2 hours, 24 hours a day. Call him every 2 hours and check on him.
Holy shit.
And I couldn't imagine that. Every 2 hours, you're in the middle of sleep, every 2 hours. And if he didn't answer after like the second or third call, we'd call 911. And we'd have to go at all hours of the night. And he had a couple dogs. I mean, always just one at a time, but every time he had one, the dog was a vicious little ankle biter. Always wanted to bite you, almost bit. One of our guys was starting an IV on him, almost bit his face. So every time we would put on bunker gear, boots, because we know the dogs are going to try to bite you. And the one time we're there, and the dog's going crazy, and the one deputy, I know him, and he's like, I'm going to fucking tase the dog. And the tiny little dog, and me, I'm like, yes, tase him. And then I look out the window, and one of our other members was coming up, and big animal lover. I'm like, no, don't tase the dog. Don't tase the dog. That would be bad. He's like, and there were people that would pick the dog up and try to, I may or may not have seen one of the guys punt the dog.
Yeah.
But the dogs were vicious little bastards. They really were. And so nobody dreaded going because of him. We dreaded because of those damn dogs. It's like, dogs. Like, that was one where you never wish harm on something, but it's like, are those dogs still alive?
Yeah.
And there they were, and that's, I always would say that, like in EMS, like, I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I just want to be there when it happens. That was kind of my motto. Like, I don't wish ill on anybody, but if it's going to happen, I'd kind of like to be there and see what happened.
Yeah, how it all plays out.
Right, how did that happen? We did, there's a skydiving organization, I guess, business in our area.
Yeah.
And that was we were there once in a while. Sometimes the chute didn't open, which I know we all know how that ends.
Yeah.
And they would have these crazy competitions where they would like fly down and skim the water.
Oh, shit.
No,
And
I'm good.
just that, I mean, just listening to them. I have a video of one of them and just hearing it. Like, they come in, it sounds like one of those Nerf footballs. It's just, but it's a human. It's like, good God. Like, why do you people... You know, so we would do that. There was a lot. It was the county. You know, we would do some off duty, some standby stuff. Once I did EMS for lawnmower racing.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
I've seen lawnmower racing.
Guys
before.
racing souped up lawnmowers.
They fucking go too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they do that midget wrestling shows. Do you ever do EMS for?
I've
out
never
there or
done
anything?
midget wrestling. I mean, EMS or
Well,
or the
I don't think
physical-
you would do
or the
midget.
physical event.
Yeah.
But well, you put like 3 of them on their shoulders in a trench coat. You don't know. But I did regular EMS for like MMA fights, but never. I've never even been to midget wrestling.
Really?
No,
Oh,
I've never. I'd like to. I've seen it, and every time it comes up, like I'm busy, you know. But I also don't. I guess that's for a different. We'll bring up maybe midget wrestling in a different story because I got some opinions on that.
Yeah.
I got some opinions on midget wrestling.
They got to climb the one turnbuckle.
Right. Off the bottom rope.
He tries to run the ropes. He just gets clotheslined.
Right. They give him the belt, and it's literally like a bracelet. But you know, the world of EMS isn't that glamorous. It's not. You know, there's a lot of people in it, unfortunately, who just want to wear the T-shirt and drive with the lights and sirens. There's a lot of people that are in it for the wrong reasons. I was in it for every reason. You know, the reason I got into EMS was because I couldn't help my grandmother. I went over there. She ended up having a stroke, and I was helpless.
How long have you been doing it?
I graduated in 2012.
Okay.
So about 9 years.
Do you have any? I don't know if you can talk about this, but do you have any like funny stories of like people actually getting fired from the job or stuff happening to people that you worked with?
Not really. Nothing on. Well, not in the fire department side. Yes, on the private side. So the private side of ambulance world with EMS, which are obviously private ambulances.
Yeah,
you dial a regular phone number. They can still do most. I mean, everybody goes through the same schooling. If you're an EMT on a fire department and you're an EMT on a private ambulance, you went through the exact same schooling.
The private ambulance are what, those Bell City ones that you see around?
Yeah, the Erickson ambulance.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we had a guy who was working with us, and he always brought a backpack. And some ambulance companies like I've worked for 3. I work for one now, super part-time, do a lot of off-duty stuff, which is called North Central Rescue. But the one, they make you stage, so you got to sit in the ambulance all day. You know, you're allowed to be in the station for an hour, and the rest of your 12 hours, you go sit out in the community, which sucked. You know, you can't really bring leftovers unless you're planning to heat that thing on the engine block.
Yeah.
But we had a guy that he always brought a backpack, and he'd always bring the backpack into the bathroom. And the one time somebody's like, I just don't trust this guy. Well, sure enough, they went into the bathroom. We're really curious what this guy's doing. And sure enough, he's fucking shooting meth in the bathroom on his shift.
Did he have all his teeth?
He did. Okay. Whether or not they were real is left to be said.
Veneers or dentures or something. You know.
Like, here, a little bit of fentanyl for you, a little bit for me. One for you, one for me. They got rid of him for that. Nothing really funny, I guess. There was not too much. I know they did fire one girl because she kept dropping patients.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand it. She's like, well, why are you writing me up? Well, I don't know, because you dropped a fucking human being? Like, and she just couldn't. And anytime anybody would work with her, it's like, oh, God. You look at the schedule, like, oh, she's my partner. And, of course, every time you'd get a call, they'd send you and her to the one of the 400-pound woman.
Oh, my God.
You dropped her down the fucking stairs. What
16
are you thinking?
flights of stairs.
Right. And then offered her a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Why are you writing me up now?
Yeah.
Right.
I gave her an ice pack.
We got her down the stairs.
Right. It's a new method. It's the toss and tumble. They let her go.
We taught her gymnastics.
I guess it's a different animal. I guess I would say the application or interview process for a fire department's a little more stringent, a little stricter than private ambulance.
It's still a panel, right?
Not for private ambulance.
Okay.
No. Private ambulance, and some of them are like, hey, I got my license. Welcome to the team. You know, they don't like
That'll do.
Fire departments it's a panel or an interview.
Yeah.
You know, in front of, and then a vote. Like a lot of the Western fire departments, they vote on you.
Yeah.
Like they'll literally tell you, okay, leave the room, go home, we'll call you, let you know, and they vote. But private ambulance, EMTs are so hard to, you know, people just don't want to do it. That it's hard to come by. So private ambulance, you have your license, welcome. You know, they don't care. They just don't give a shit. Like, welcome to the team, and then they'll weed them out. There's good ones, there's bad ones, but it's a different animal. Like private EMS, private ambulance isn't really EMS to me. You're doing a lot of transport, a lot of grabbing grandma good cookie and taking her to her doctor.
Yeah.
You know,
You're the shuttle.
Right. Yeah, you're an expensive Uber.
Yeah.
You know, you're picking up people who can't walk, and that was the rough one, because like these nursing homes would call like, yeah, he needs to go to the doctor. He's been laying in his own urine for 2 days and we just can't do anything about it. It's
He
like,
just wants a nap.
right. Just yeah. So that's a different ball of wax that I just don't like. I just didn't. I mean, it is what it is, but I didn't like it. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
We were talking yesterday, right? About
We talk every day when we're on the toilet. So
yeah, dude. Every time you call, I'm on the toilet.
Well, yeah, I texted him, said, "Hey, I'm here." He's like, "I'm taking a shit."
yeah,
Dude, and I was taking one before I got here. No, we were saying we were gonna ask you a couple questions from previous episodes that we did for wrong hole in any holes of goal, and how you would approach a situation.
Sure, hit me with it.
I wanted to know about the one where, okay, so there's a guy who stuck his penis into a pipe at a construction site, but as they were trying to saw him out, they had to saw him out because he was hard in there, and
Still.
they couldn't pull him out of the pipe, but as they were sawing through it, the pipe was getting warm and vibrating, and it just kept him
Kept going.
erect. Yeah,
Could you slow the saw down just a little bit?
Would you have approached the situation the same way, or
Tried to saw the pipe? Well, typically, if that would have happened, we would have had our squad come out, and they would have sawed said
just try lubing it up.
said
first.
pipe.
spit on it?
Right? Yeah, that's. I don't know. That's a good question. I would have done my best to. Please, sir, stop.
Please.
We're trying to help you, and you're grabbing my thigh.
You're just
Like,
making it worse.
This is making it awkward. Like,
Don't move, I'm coming.
right. Cap the end of the pipe.
It's pointing up at you while you're trying to
Like,
saw
oh
it.
God, I can.
Oh my eye.
Oh God, is that bird shit? That would be where there would be no humor. That would be time to turn it off. Like, sir, this is serious business. Like please, think of dead puppies for God's sakes. Like,
That just makes it work.
right. This is my third pipe this week. Like, please, sir, you got to stop it. Go with a larger bore pipe.
He's on a playground of all places.
Swing faster, Tommy. Swing faster.
They're on a seesaw. He's like, yeah. Fucking weirdo.
Good thing I brought peanut butter.
Oh my God.
This is the dog park now.
Speaking of dicks in EMS, we did have a call where a guy cut himself. And one of our new guys, they literally had to hold the dick the whole way to the ambulance.
Oh my
The
God.
whole way to the hospital. Like, he's sitting there, and I wish people could see, as we're driving, just sitting there holding the dick. And
He didn't even have a glove on.
It was hard, right? It was hard to maintain composure as he's just holding the dick the whole. Imagine the guy, like the guy's like, "Hey, could you go over a couple more bumps?" But yeah, he had to hold the dick the whole way, and he was the new guy, so unfortunately that's sometimes how the ball bounces. Is the new guy's gotta
Was it like halfway severed, or was it just?
No, it was just a pretty good cut.
Yeah,
it wasn't a dangly dick.
Did he tell you the story on what happened, or
no? He did. It was. I don't remember how it happened. Honestly, I was there, but I didn't ride the ambulance, like because sometimes multiple units will go and then just one will take them. Yeah. So I wasn't in the rig for the holding of said dick. But it was definitely one for the record books. Like the whole
he wishes he was,
and being okay. If
the
you were
perfect selfie with the new guy,
right? Here's the three of us together. Me,
dream job.
This is my first day. It's selfie,
right? Twist the dick. But yeah. If you were in the city, it's fine because you can get to the hospital anywhere in the city in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But this guy was west of the interstate, and there's no hospitals close, so it was a good 15-minute dick ride. Just to hold the dick.
That's
and can you imagine that? Like, just
that's a marathon dick ride. For me,
do you talk to the guy? Do you just make it out? Like, because
don't make eye contact.
At that time, is it small talk? Like, so what do you do for work?
Talk? Is it flaccid talk?
Right. Like,
if I was the guy holding the dick, I don't think I'd even say a word to him.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to make eye contact because God forbid he winks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck.
No, new guy occasionally like slips a little finger on the nut.
Right, like, is this second base or what?
Can you hold my balls while you're at it?
Right,
didn't even buy me dinner.
Since you got a free hand there, does that cabinet say lube?
Oh man,
yeah, there wasn't a lot of dick.
Not a lot of dick.
No dicks in pipes in my whole.
What about items being lodged in people's bodies?
Well, items lodged in like prison wallets.
Yeah, so there's
because I honestly think. I think those people would be. I would hope they'd be a little embarrassed and they wouldn't want to call. Like, just drive yourself.
I want to hear the 911 dispatch
for the guy who had the Buzz Light ear stuck in his asshole.
Right, and he's still on.
The wings opened up.
Literally, I was at work and everybody kept hearing was to infinity and beyond. Like, where is that coming from? Beyond.
Buzz Lightyear to the rescue.
Right. No, never anything lodged where it shouldn't be. I mean, I would think if again we were a rural department, so we were out west. We were getting on a busy day 6 calls, but I'm sure some of the guys in the city who are getting 15 calls a day. There's no question in my mind that they've gotten some unexpected items in unexpected places.
It happens most of the time in Florida. I'm sure you've listened to our Florida stories.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Florida.
I think the weirdest thing that I've seen probably in person was we were checking on an individual who he had a tendency of another one who like shoves stuff up his ass, but this one wasn't his penis. Really little guy. No, it was the toilet brush, the scrubber, but it looked like a rabbit tail because it was just the scrubbing part that was left sticking out. And
I thought you meant the bigger part was in his ass.
No, he stuck the rod up there, and it just looked like a little bunny tail. And the nurse, that's why I feel for you guys, because we see it, and we just have to write what we saw in a report. But anyone who's like medically, trained, or the EMS or nurses on call, the doctors, they have to deal with that type of situation. Like, do you just like pull something like that out? I don't know.
No, that's actually kind of a one of the things you learn in school is you don't pull anything out.
Yeah, you want to leave it in.
Just stabilize it. So if the brush was in there, at that point we just put him on his stomach and tape that thing to his ass.
Yeah, but wouldn't he have to be like in the fetal position or something? For
whatever's more comfortable for him.
Right. That's crazy, man.
Obviously, he put a brush up his ass, so who knows what's most comfortable for him, but...
Not pulling anything out is how I had a kid.
I'm not yanking that thing out. That's not coming out.
You ever been in the truck and have people, like, try to flirt with you while you're trying to take care of them, or...
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Not a lot.
It's the older ones, right? Granny taking her dentures
she's like, can you just sit on my face real quick?
Well, and there were some where, you have to do an EKG, and you got to take the shirt off. And there were some older 70s, 80s, and the boobs would come on, like, you like that? I'm like, how do you answer that? Like, you don't want to be rude, and it's like...
You're goddamn right, I like that.
You're on your back, ma'am, and these are hanging past your your sides.
They're touching the floor. They're hanging off the bed.
Ma'am, there's something in between your breasts that wasn't there before, and it's your belly button. There were just a couple, not many. A lot of them were embarrassed, and I would do my best. Like if there was a woman back there, I'd try to have a female EMT. Like you deal with this.
Yeah,
you know, I don't want to deal with. But there were some who were like, oh, you like those? And again, it's one of those situations where you're like, well, if I'm rude and be like, oh God, no, do I tell the truth? And be like, so my always answer was like, I'm not looking. Ma'am, I'm not looking at your breasts. I'm here to do a job. And then there were a couple where they were younger, cuter, like, oh, you're pretty cute.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Do you want a free breast exam today, man?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I cut my toe. Why are you taking my top off? Actually more flirtatious. I wouldn't say flirtatious, but offers in my current job in the loss prevention world.
Really?
More of I will do anything for you not to call the police.
Okay, we got to do an episode on just.
Oh yeah,
yours.
we can do that one too.
Holy
yeah,
shit, that'd be awesome.
But more of that. Like, yeah, not a.
Have you accepted any? No, I'm just kidding.
we'll get
Don't
to
answer that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, there wasn't. Now, obviously, I'm not one of the calendar guys, unless it was like
Mr. July,
Mr. June, Chunky Trunks. But I'm sure there were a couple guys that I'm sure got their share of flirtatious,
Yeah.
encounters, but not for me.
No.
No.
How do you deal with? Well, how have you had a situation where someone was aggressive with you, and how did you deal with the situation? I mean, you're a big guy. I don't think anyone really would be too aggressive with you.
Both the fire department and private ambulance. There were some that would get aggressive, especially the ones who might have overdosed, and then you hit them with the Narcan and bring them back, and I'd say in my experience,
They feel like
probably like 60% come out of it and they're combative.
Yeah.
Either because they don't know where they are or because they're pissed because you just took their high away.
How much dick I sucked for that crack?
Right. I took 3 just for one hit. At which point, every ambulance, part of your supplies is it's posy straps. Essentially, they're fabric handcuffs that you can cuff people to the bed. And there were a lot of people who I would make my presence. Obviously, it's not hard to make my presence known, but you could see it in their eyes. Like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that.
No.
Private ambulance. One of the companies I worked for dealt with a location out west of the eye that had dorms full of people who had mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And these guys, one of my first calls, they put these big giant, they look like boxing gloves, but they're mittens. And I asked, I'm like, what are the mittens? Oh, that's so it doesn't hurt when they hit you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Or so they don't hit themselves.
Yeah.
And I had a partner. It was like one of my first calls out there. And the guy I was driving, the guy's in the back, and he's like, knock it off. I'm looking in the mirror trying to see, and literally the guy's up there just smacking the shit out of my partner with these man mittens on, just pop, 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 pop. And he's like pushing him down, and the guy would smack him, he'd push him back down. I'm up there, and at this point I'm laughing. He's like, pull over and help me. I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. Like, this man in mittens is smacking you around. But some of those guys are strong, too. If you're having a mental health,
strong.
like unbelievably. Like, and there were times where it would take 2 of us, sometimes 3, to hold this guy down, get him strapped into the cot. That was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it had,
We had a guy in a 5-point restraint that was still moving the bed. Like, I think it's something with, like, the adrenaline or something like that. Like, because it's... Even when we get an adrenaline, an adrenaline rush before, like, getting into a fight or something of that nature, most rational people can stop to an extent. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like they don't have, like, that shut-off, so it's constant just fucking... just raw strength. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
No. We had one guy that actually came to the fire department, and his friend was with him, and he's like, yeah, something's wrong with my buddy, and he obviously on the fire department it's a different game. You know, you're not the police. You know, you're not security. But he's like, yeah, something's wrong with my buddy, and his buddy's just losing his mind. And we get him out of the car, and the fight was on. And then one deputy shows up, and he's like literally throwing this deputy. The deputies, and certain deputies would be like, hey, help. Mm-hmm. And then when I hear that word, it's like you hear ding ding. It's like, okay, game on. But he was
round 2.
Right, here we go. But you know, and there's drugs you can give them to chemically sedate them. But yeah, he was a fighter in the parking lot. I mean, there was I think 3 of us and like 2 or 3 deputies, and he was still putting on a hell of a struggle. Yeah, it was ridiculous how much of a struggle he was putting on.
It's like, and when you were talking about the mittens, I couldn't help but think I've seen the mittens before, and anytime that someone's like trying to fight with them, I picture the boxing training and the sparring mitts that they're smacking the sparring mitts and then still getting the shit kicked out of them with them.
And it makes the sound, and that was what made me laugh, is when he was hitting my partner in the back of the ambulance, it made us like, and he just kept hearing, and every time I'm like, he's getting hit by man mittens. and that, you know, he's like, pull over. And I think I drove probably about 10 city blocks before I'm like, yeah, okay, I should probably pull over, because he's getting beaten up by literally mittens. But
it's like fighting a Sesame Street Muppet.
Elmo beat my ass.
How was your day, honey? I got beat up with a man in mittens.
I swear he was cooking, and all of a sudden he just started smacking me with them other mitts.
It was an of glove. I got hit with an of glove.
Dude, that's so I know I was going to ask you another question related to dealing with aggressive people. Man, I can't think of it. Do you have anything else, Devin, while I try thinking about it?
I was just going to ask you, like, if you had anything you wanted to plug or shout out, or anything new coming up, or...
Nothing new coming up.
Okay.
Like I said, the current company I'm working for is North Central Rescue.
Okay.
Definitely look them up on Facebook if you have any events coming up that you need EMTs, ones that aren't afraid to get hit by a man mitten. Yeah. Give them a call. Like that's where it's at.
You got a phone number or anything, or
I
website?
Don't. Facebook. Just look up North Central Rescue and EMS. Okay. You'll be able to find those guys. New coming up. No, nothing really. Nothing new. I do work for. I work super part-time for a company that I'm not going to name them just because I don't know if they want to be named, but they do like set medics. So, like for reality TV.
Oh, nice.
And I work really part-time for them.
Fear Factor.
I pass on that one.
Yeah.
But they're always so far away. Like they said, there's a high-profile reality series filming down in Chicago that they asked me to work next week, and they won't tell you what it is. And I'm always like, I kind of want to know what it is.
Yeah.
But no, nothing new coming up. Nothing new. I mean, I have our yearly my seasonal job. As you work with me at my seasonal job,
well,
so
3 of us work there.
Yeah.
I don't anymore though. I just don't have
ever
the
since
time.
your break and
breaking my leg, having a kid. I guess the kid thing isn't really the best excuse, but with the leg and everything, I can't stand up all night.
It was like the lightning.
Yeah.
It was the lightning.
Yeah, that lightning was
like,
serious.
Yep, that's it. That's the end of my
career.
Now
Now with metal leg, I'm the conductor now.
Look at that guy. He's laying in the corn and his leg is glowing. It's real.
Oh shit! Yeah,
we'll definitely do another episode with Paulie. Security stories. I'm sure we got plenty of those, even out at the haunted house that we do. We got some stories out there.
Honestly, there's not. We do our best out there to not have problems. I mean, obviously, problems find you, but we do our best to not have issues. Like, let's not have an issue tonight. Now, when I first started it, and we'll bring that to another episode, but we looked for like, oh, I really hope something happens tonight. Yeah. Tonight's tonight. Yeah. Now at this age, it's like, please, I just don't want anything to happen. I just want to be able to stand out here, freeze my ass off, and go home. That's what I want.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we should wrap this one up.
All right.
Call it a day. You can follow us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Snapchat. We also have what is that? Subscription. You can do like a monthly donation to us. We're going to be setting something up if you just want to do a one-time donation. Just to keep everything going. You will get stuff for donations. We're setting all that stuff up here shortly. We got some really good interviews, really good shows coming up. If you have any questions, email us at themanlybanter@gmail.com.
Yep. All right.
And it was a pretty good episode with Paulie today. So I think that's it. So you guys have a good day, you sexy motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah.